Welcome to a new season of the A-Game. This year, we're doing things a little differently. Now, we're focusing on more in-depth analysis and debateful discussion of not just App State sports, but some of the hottest topics across the sports industry. How's it going? I'm your host, David Katzenmeyer. App State fans were hopeful that the Mountaineers could be Sun Belt champions. But now, after the first weeks of play, the path to a fifth Sun Belt title has gotten trickier. But before we have that discussion, let's toss it over to Appalachian Weekly News reporter Nick Ragone, who has more.
There are a lot of questions surrounding the App State football team following a big loss against conference rival South Alabama. The noise on social media is calling for a change, and the fact is that this is App State's worst conference loss since joining FBS. Coach Clark knows that it's time to dig deep.
Very disappointed in our performance. And again, that starts with the head football coach. It's my job to get it corrected. We didn't play well in any three phases of the football game: offense, defense, special teams. Again, I looked at the tape tonight. We'll be back tomorrow to work. But just very disappointed, but we got to move on to Liberty.
The biggest culprit to the Mountaineers' struggles this season? Starting slowly. They've been outscored 65-0 in first quarters of their last 3 games and have only mustered up 10 points in the first quarter of this entire season.
And we don't make stops. I think it was third and 9, I believe, the first drive, and they haul for a 60-yard run. So, again, it's not about we have to make plays, and that falls directly on the coaches.
There is no rest for the weary, though, as one of App State's toughest opponents in Liberty comes to town on September 28th.
We have 3 expert analysts to discuss App State football with us today. 2 of our analysts are entering their rookie season with the A-Game. Kara Daniel, studying to become a sideline or NASCAR reporter after graduation, and J.D. Rogers, an aspiring broadcaster who has experience commentating games for WASU, and of course, Dylan Shepard, the only veteran of the A-Game with us today. All right, y'all. You heard Nick's package. The start of the season hasn't been what many fans expected, but how do the Mountaineers continue their push to the goal of a Sun Belt championship?
You know, David, I think it's going to be a bit hard. We started off bad last year, and we got a little bit better, but if we want to win the Sun Belt championship, we're going to have to lock in. 49 points against South Alabama, that is not going to do anything good for us. And, you know, I think Sean Clark might be digging his own grave right now.
Yeah, Sean Clark's getting a lot of heat right now. We're kind of in a pit. We've had a few dramatic losses in the past few weeks, and I think we have some hope because we were kind of in the same position last year. But we do have a lot of work to knock JMU out.
And I absolutely agree with Sean Clark where he says the blame has to fall on the coaches, the entire coaching staff. They have to be able to coach this team up to ensure that they are playing at the level that Clark knows that they are capable of. This team is far better than 2-2 and getting blown out twice. We should be competing for a Sun Belt championship. Coaches have to make sure that players are up to the task.
Yeah, and I think the talent on this team is absolutely phenomenal, and I think we have the talent to get to the college football playoffs, but right now it is just not looking like we're getting there.
So, Kara, you did a little bit of digging into the overall outlook for this team for the rest of the season. Can you explain a little bit more about what this team is looking for heading into the middle of the year?
Yeah, I mean, generally we have a lot of work to do. I hate to admit it, but we're kind of digging ourselves a grave, as JD said earlier. You know, we've had 66-20 with Clemson. We have a whole bunch of work to get done when it comes to Liberty. We're kind of, our offense wasn't doing what it had to do during South Alabama. And yeah, I mean, there's so much more to say about it, but the real season starts with Marshall, and then we really have to step into it.
JD, the offense has been under some scrutiny recently, 14 points against South Alabama. What do they need to improve on going forward?
Well, I think we need to improve on just about everything. We are looking very horrible. In the first half, we had one drive where we were down 21-0 in the second quarter. And we had one drive. We got all the way down there. Joey Aguilar threw almost a pick six. And we just can't have that, especially when we're down that much. If we want to succeed on the offensive end of things, we have to lock in. Joey has to be a better passer. We need a true running back one. We don't even have one right now. Well, Castle is playing great. It's just going not good. Our receivers are our best unit on the field. They look great every game. I mean, Christian Horn tracked down that dude from saving a pick six. You could see the hustle in them. And I think that our offense just needs to step it up. 14 points against South Alabama and 1 pity touchdown at the end is just not going to cut anything.
And like you had mentioned, a lot of those points coming in the first quarter. Nick Ragone mentioned it a moment ago. outscored 65-10 in the first quarter. Dylan, what does this defense have to do differently?
This defense has simply not been playing good enough and not up to expectations. This defense is one of the worst in the Sun Belt Conference. Through 4 games, they've been giving up nearly 36 points a game, which is last in the conference. 2 of the sore spots have been the secondary. I immediately think of Averion Cole getting burnt on the 3rd play of the game against Clemson for a 76-yard touchdown. I also think of that D-line as another sore spot. They gave up an 83-yard touchdown in that Clemson game as well, and they allowed 320 rushing yards against South Alabama's rushing attack, which is not going to cut it in the Sun Belt Conference, which has a lot of high-end talent. I think that we have to play more physical at the line of scrimmage, maybe a couple more pressures up front to ease the tension for the secondary, maybe pressing a little bit at the line of scrimmage as well, jamming the receivers at the line. That'll create less separation, allow less explosive plays. But in general, you just have to play more aggressive, I think. That's the number one key here.
And App State's played in some really hostile environments this year, and it's going to continue with both Marshall and Louisiana back-to-back road games. How does App State keep their composure amongst a lot of the scrutiny that's been given to not only the players, but the coaching staff?
Well, I think Dylan hit it on the head. Our defense, they looked really bad in the front 7 last week, and against Clemson, the secondary got absolutely demolished. And they did play in Death Valley. They did play in ECU. We got a dub in that game. It was a bit atrocious. But to continue playing at this level, we need to fix something. And that defense has been one of the worst defenses I've seen since I've been here. I'm a senior this year. 4 years, it's bad. It's going downhill.
It's not pretty at all. I can attest to that. This defense has been folding at the worst possible times. It's one of the worst defenses on 3rd and 4th down, as well as one of the worst defenses in the red zone. They give up a touchdown or points basically every single time their opponents get inside that red zone, and that's not going to cut it. If this offense cannot keep up with the amount of points our defense gives up, we're not going to be competitive in the Sun Belt.
Yeah, I mean, we're kind of known for being a second half school and making up for what we've lost in the first, but this year we're not making up for anything. I think throughout the next few weeks we kind of have to figure out how to gain more points in the first half to figure out how we can maintain a positive outlook on these games, because right now we're kind of in a...
And when you think of App State football, you think of running the rock. You think about having 40, 50 carries a game. But so far this year, we've relied on Joey Aguilar to pass the ball a lot. Do you think that's been the right decision, or do we have to change it up?
Well, I think that comes with not scoring any points in the first quarter. If we're not scoring, we're not going to get the opportunity to run the ball. And once we get those first points, we might have a chance to start running the ball. But we still haven't had a running back one, as I said earlier. We've been scraping between 3 running backs, and they're all pretty good. Connie Roberts has not played up to his potential this year, though. And if we really want to take a next step in that running game, we are going to need him to step up.
You're absolutely right. This offense has to step up. This entire team has to step up. We've had 4 games this year. We've only had 1 interception on defense. The same time last year, we had 6. This defense has been known in the past to have clutch plays, clutch interceptions, clutch forced fumbles, just stopping opponents short of the red zone, of getting points on the board. That's not the case this year, and something has to change. There has to be maybe a different outlook with the coaching staff on that defensive side. Defensive coordinator Scott Sloan, defensive line coach Eric McDaniel, and Rod West there as well, who is the defensive passing game coordinator. Those 3 guys have to come together to provide some sort of strategy to limit these points that are being scored in the first quarter, because we cannot keep digging ourselves out of these massive holes every week.
Yeah, I think that one thing that we're kind of missing when looking at all of this is our opponents. You know, so far we've had some pretty tough players and against us, like South Alabama before us. They beat Northwestern 87-10. And then Clemson, who's not even in our division, who's not even like remotely at our level. And I think people kind of need to put that in perspective when looking at all of this, because without that, then it's just out of context.
I agree, but you have to look. That team that South Alabama played, FCS school, they were 0-2 before that. South Alabama was 0-2, and they have to be better.
You're correct, and we'll see how this App State football team is able to do going into some tough road games and heading into the middle of the season. Stay where you are. We'll be talking more in App State sports, but this time women's soccer. How are they shaping up heading into conference play? Find out when we return.
Life is a journey. We're told that there are mountains and valleys before us. A mountaineer trudges through. Where others see an obstacle, a mountaineer sees an opportunity. A mountaineer climbs tomorrow's mountains today. So what is a mountaineer? A mountaineer is you.
Hello and welcome to this edition of the Appalachian Weekly News. I'm Jenna Dunning.
And I'm Hunter Boston. We have you covered on all things Ashe, Avery, and Watauga County.
Welcome back to Black at App State TV. I'm your host, Rhea Autry, and we are so happy to have you here with us today.
Bienvenidos a otro episodio Buenos Días Boone. Yo soy Natalia Guiar.
Y yo soy Denise Casales.
Hello and welcome back to another brand new episode of Can't Think Straight.
Hello and welcome to this episode of Connected Cultures.
This is Adam Church, live with the Adam Church Band, RFG, baby.
Hello and welcome to Religion and Life. I'm your host, Ozzy Ostwald.
Welcome back to a brand new episode of The A-Game.
It's a good moment, you know.
Hi, Pixels.
Oh my god, no.
That doesn't sound good at all.
Welcome back, my fellow insomniacs.
Welcome back to the A-Game. Staying at App State sports, App State women's soccer is off to an impressive start. We've got two more A-Game rookies to pick on, so let's welcome to the field Will Battershell, an avid racing fan and host of Turning Laps on 90.5 WASU, and Brandon Griffin, an aspiring sports broadcaster. Now, Will, I want to open and talk about the atmosphere of App State home soccer games. They call it the Valley, and it gets extremely loud and it gets potent. What is it like being at those home games for App State?
I would compare it to a football game. I think it's just as rowdy between the students and the adults as a football game can be. We have horns, we have cowbells, there's everything. There's just so much noise, especially when it's getting in a close tied game. It's just noise everywhere. Fans are yelling at the ref, fans are yelling at the other team. It's the perfect atmosphere.
And you mentioned a perfect atmosphere. Brandon, if you're down on the pitch and you're experiencing that, what's kind of the worst case scenario for you as an opponent if you're coming into the Valley?
Man, I think if you're going against somebody in their home field with their fans yelling and you have to be locked in, but I think at the Valley it's kind of hard to do that. So I think the best you can do is just be on your A game.
And App State opened Sunbelt play with a very impressive win on the road, but we know the grind is just beginning. Will, who are some Sunbelt opponents that we're going to have to watch out for who enter the Valley?
So, two people I have my eye on. JMU, who has turned into our rival in pretty much every sport it feels like now as they join the Sunbelt, because JMU is performing just as good as we are, if maybe just a little better. And then if we go to the West, ULM is my big pick. They're 7-3 right now, which is very impressive. They've never tied, and it's 7 straight legit wins.
And you talk about JMU, really since they've entered the Sun Belt, it feels like we've been feuding with them. Brandon, do you feel like they're becoming one of our main rivals?
Yeah, I think they are, yes sir.
So we know what our opponents are going to look like. You mentioned JMU and ULM. App State has a star-studded lineup, and there's a lot of hope and optimism around this team. Will, who are some players that these fans need to look out for?
So first, I'm going with our 2 forwards. Ellie Garrison, a straight freshman, is on pace to break so many records right now. 4 goals, 12 points, and she leads the Sun Belt in both of those for freshmen and is 12th ranked nationally. And then we have Izzy Wood, who is a graduate student, so her last year in Boone, and she is leading the Sun Belt in shots on goal and shots per game, and is 12th ranked nationally in both those categories. And then I think our biggest piece behind our forwards is our goalkeeper, Sarah Womack. And she is currently saving 2/3 of the balls kicked to her, which is huge for the team, especially holding our opponents to about 1.5 goals per game.
And Brandon, there is a tough schedule coming up for App State can you give us just a preview of what's on the horizon for App State women's soccer?
Yes, sir. We play Louisiana at Louisiana coming up this Thursday. Their record is 5-1-5, a little bit above 500. I feel confident with App State that we can beat Louisiana, and then the next 3 games are at home. Where we play Arkansas State, and then Georgia State, and then Coastal Carolina. They're all pretty good. Their conference play, Arkansas State is 0-1. Georgia State is tied. That's only conference, and then Coastal, they've lost. So I think App State has a really good chance of coming on top on all 3 of those.
So now that we know some of the new faces of App State soccer, let's meet the new faces in the NFL. Stay tuned, and we'll give you the insight on which young quarterbacks are making their names known.
Let's go!
To a place where you can grow.
A place to be heard.
And take a closer look.
A place where you can crush it.
And push yourself.
A place to find your voice.
This place rocks. And rolls.
A place where you can get out.
Wow!
A place you'll never forget.
So where is this place? Let me show you.
Welcome to Boone, North Carolina. Located along the Blue Ridge Parkway, nestled in the Appalachian Mountains, there is no place like it. Take a stroll down charming King Street, where you are sure to see a familiar face welcoming you. In the summer, go tubing down the New River, where the water runs almost as deep as our Mountaineer pride. When the leaves change in the fall, pack a picnic and head to Thunder Hill Overlook, where the skyline is so vibrant you can't help but send a picture to all of your family and friends. In the winter, check out one of our nearby ski resorts, where Yosef might just challenge you to a race down the slopes. And year-round, you can take in some of the most breathtaking views wherever you turn. As soon as you arrive in Boone, you'll realize there is something special in these mountains. Welcome home. Welcome to the Valley.
Bryce in the shotgun takes a snap. Troy sends 4. Bryce rolls left, gonna heave it deep, and it's not gonna get there. It's caught by Christian Horn. He's around the outside, and it scores! He scores! App State wins! Holy mother meatballs! It's a touchdown for App State on a Hail Mary! Christian Horn! Touchdown!
What once were rows of crops are now hallways for growing our future. The old ways that served generations before are now the perfected paths of tomorrow. These mountains have always called to the pathfinder, the trailblazer, the innovator. The faces and structures may change, but one thing remains constant: access to higher education, here and always at App State.
NFL football. With so much to talk about just a few weeks into the season, one thing that many fans are discussing is young quarterbacks. Tristan Beazle, an avid racing fan, Green Bay Packers fan, and apparently by the color of that shirt, a fan of the Tennessee Vols.
Absolutely not.
What are we doing, man? That color is just...
Oh, dude, I don't even know.
Did we want to go off-brand with the black and gold, or what are we doing?
I wanted to match the shoes.
Well, good thing the shoes aren't on camera. And Bobby Phillips, station manager for 90.5 WASU and an avid Colts fan.
Yeah, we're no longer in the running for the #1 overall pick, David, so that's good for the team.
Yeah, I mean, you might need a new quarterback soon, but that's a discussion we can get to later. Tristan, I want to open the rookie conversation with you. As a Green Bay Packers fan, Caleb Williams is somebody you're going to have to see twice a year. What have you seen out of him so far early on?
Not really good. In the small sample size that I've seen him, he just doesn't look like he's ready. He looks like Justin Fields was in his first year. Awfully green and awful at making decisions. He has a 26.8 QBR, which is bottom 5 in the league. His interceptions are also bottom 5 in the league. Technically top 5 if you look at the stat itself. 2 touchdowns, 600 yards. He just doesn't look good. And when Ryan Poles brought in all of these weapons around him, your DJ Moore, Keenan Allens of the world, those are the guys that are supposed to be built around your day one impact quarterback. And I just haven't seen that out of Caleb Williams just yet.
Well, Tristan, you just said it right there. It's a small sample size. Yes, he hasn't been playing very well, but still pretty early on in the season for the Bears, and Caleb Williams is still getting his footing in the league. And you mentioned Justin Fields, and now he's on the Steelers, and so far he's looking pretty solid. Yes, not the greatest quarterback in the world, but overall really developing in his later years. I don't think it's time to give up on Caleb Williams just yet. Just because he's having a shaky start doesn't mean necessarily that he's a bust or anything.
And I'm going to interrupt you there. I think it's already time to give up on Caleb Williams because of the coaching. We saw it with Justin Fields. We saw it with Mitch Trubisky. We saw it with Jay Cutler. It is up to the coaching to develop that quarterback. And I don't know if I'm going to see that in Caleb Williams. So Chicago is the place where quarterbacks go to die if you're drafted there. And you said look at Justin Fields. Great. We're going to look at Justin Fields. He is performing very well in Pittsburgh. In Chicago, he wouldn't even come close to doing that.
Yeah, the Steelers sitting right at the top of the AFC North. I want to jump to a team that recently got torn open, the AFC North, the Bengals. They had a recent matchup against the Washington Commanders, and Jayden Daniels, boy oh boy, he has looked really good to start the year. Bobby, what have you thought about him?
Yeah, so far for Jayden Daniels, the main thing that stands out over a couple of other new-coming quarterbacks is he's constantly improving, and it's leading to wins for his team. Overall, he's just taking over for the Commanders. He looked great from the get-go, and every game he seems to get better. The only thing he's not improving with as much is his rushing game. He's not going for as many yards, but he's throwing more in the air. He's scoring more passing touchdowns. He's setting the team up, even if they don't get a touchdown, they're still in decent position to get a field goal the majority of the time. So overall, Jaden McDaniels has a great impact on the team and so far are looking like the best quarterback out of this class. Of course, time will tell and things will shake out and people will settle into the league. So we won't really know until after this year and maybe a couple years down the line. But overall, Jaden Daniels looks great for the Commanders.
So is he your Rookie of the Year?
So far, it's looking like that, David. He is, once again, as I mentioned, not as developing the rushing game, but even when he is on the ground, he's looking great for the Commanders overall. But once again, in the air, he looks amazing. He looks poised. He looks confident. He looks like he's having a good time out there. If you're watching the game, you can see him smiling throughout the entire thing whenever they cut to him close up. Obviously, if they're doing hurry up, this is a difficult situation. He might look a little bit more frustrated, but when he's running to the sideline, he has a big grin on his face. He's having a great time, and he doesn't look nervous at all. That's something we're seeing out of a couple other quarterbacks right now are the nerves. But for him, he just looks ready to go in the NFL.
Yeah, and I go back to my conversation about Caleb Williams, and I say 2 words. Immediate impact. And you saw that with Jayden Daniels, and he just looks so much more comfortable compared to the other rookie quarterbacks we've seen, and even some of the younger quarterbacks that have a year or 2 in them. CJ Stroud, Anthony Richardson, even Justin Herbert. I don't think I've seen a quarterback look that comfortable in a new team, new offense, like Jayden Daniels. He looks like RG3, and my mom's a Commanders fan, so really good to see that her team has a really good quarterback.
And you mentioned Anthony Richardson. He's a guy I really want to touch on. Bobby, I know you have some opinions about him, but he played in his rookie year only 4 games before getting hurt. Now with a small sample size this year, we've seen the arm. It is flashy. He's one of the strongest quarterbacks in the league, but the decision-making is left to be desired. What are our thoughts on Anthony Richardson in year 2?
Well, I think some people are being a little bit too hard on him as a quarterback. Yes, I'm not going to excuse his play at all whatsoever. It definitely needs to improve. But looking back at when he was drafted, one of the big things talked about him coming out of the draft was how raw of a prospect he was, how much he needs to develop. And he still is, but you had a whole year off. You only played 4 games last year. You're essentially only really going into your 5th full game of NFL football. So he has a lot of room to improve and get better, which he needs to do, but I think people expect him to come out very developed like we're seeing from Daniels right now, where they're expecting him to come out. And yes, the Colts would like to see better production from Richardson, but overall, once again, the same thing I was mentioning about Caleb Williams, you need to give it a little bit more time. He's a very raw prospect, and he needs more live snaps, David.
Bobby.
I'm just saying.
Raw prospect, he was a first-round draft pick. And yes, you look at his time in Florida as being this raw prospect with just the highest ceiling possible, Tom Brady level, Lamar Jackson level. But this is now a quarterback you're looking at that, I mean, how much longer can you sit there and go raw product? I mean, you've got a guy on the bench in Joe Flacco, who honestly,
Joe Flacco could outperform Anthony Richardson right now.
That's what I'm thinking.
Let me go back to this. Peyton Manning had one of the worst rookie seasons statistically as a rookie quarterback. He threw, I can't remember the exact amount of picks, but he threw a lot of interceptions his rookie year in the league. And yes, this is technically not Anthony Richardson's rookie year, but it's his 5th game of NFL football. So he's still developing. He needs time to advance. He needs time to develop, and he is going to get better. I truly believe that. He just needs to have himself some time to get his feet under himself and be able to perform better. Because yes, he's not playing very well, but he's still developing. It's still his 5th game into the year. So, and many more to come. So I really see Anthony Richardson developing, and he has a lot of room to improve.
This isn't the 90s. You can't give a quarterback multiple years like they gave Peyton Manning in today's NFL. Look at what happened with Josh Rosen a few years ago with the Cardinals. If you're not that immediate day one starter that your team needs, you're toast. And I think I'm going to see that with Anthony Richardson. He has the Josh Allen rookie year arm where he could air the ball out 70 yards, but he's going to throw it into triple coverage. I don't think Anthony Richardson's that good, even with his small sample size. He needs to improve quickly if he wants to remain the starting quarterback in the future for the Indianapolis Colts.
What's your window on him? How many more games do you give him? At what point in the season do you then say, Anthony Richardson, it's getting to become too much of an experiment?
Halfway through the year. You get to about that week 8, week 9 mark, and if he hasn't shown signs of improvement, that's when you need to look at him and be like, okay, you're young, you're green, we're going to bench you for the rest of the year, and hopefully Flacco could take us to a playoff spot, and you'll be ready next year.
Well, if Richardson's performing so badly like you're expecting, Tristan, my one question is, at that point, where will the Colts be halfway through the season? If they are down, what's the point of putting Joe Flacco into the game? You know he's not developing anymore much longer.
They'll probably be at 500 with how good Jonathan Taylor is.
Well, besides the point of that, obviously Jonathan Taylor is a good point for the Colts, but overall,
you really want to the only source of your offense.
You want to develop Anthony Richardson overall, as that's the goal for the team this year. Going into this year, you want to see Anthony Richardson improve as the year goes on. And that starts right now. You have to go through the year, and yes, he's not going to have the best game every time out there for the Colts, but overall, he's going to steadily improve as time goes on because you are giving him more live snaps. He's not going to improve on the bench. He's going to improve in the game, and the only way you can make him improve is to make him play.
And it's going to cost Shane Steichen his job if he keeps him out there.
I don't know about that.
Steichen needs to get him under control now rather than trying to get him under control later.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. Obviously, you want better results sooner rather than later. I do agree with you on that point, Tristan. He does need to improve as soon as possible, but once again, you can't expect immediate results out the gate because you're coming off of an injury. It's your 5th game of NFL football. It's just overall getting very new to the league and just still getting your footing.
5th game or not, coming off an injury or not, he wasn't that good last year either.
He
wasn't good last season.
So one of the most raw
How long are you going to throw out that developing excuse?
We can get you a room after the show, but we are running out of time here on our first episode back of the A Game. We thank you so much for tuning in, and make sure to stay up to date by following us on Instagram and Twitter, and staying tuned for an exciting new season of the A Game. And remember, tune in every Monday at 11:40 a.m. to hear what Appalachian Weekly News has to say about Sean Clark's weekly press conference.